Okay. So we got one last story of the day. And this is, I always like to end on a good note when I can. Um, so, of course, this last Sunday was not only the Oscars, but it was The Last of Us. And The Last of Us brought us, anybody who's played the game knows the ending, and, it brought us a fantastic ending. But it's interesting to note how it was produced. And I say that because of this. Um, it's They spent between 10 to $15 million an episode on this, and you can definitely tell where the money went. I have no complaints about that. So here's why I said this. The Last of Us used real trained giraffes in an abandoned hospital for the season finale. Um, so, this comes from Deadline. Sunday season finale of The Last of Us tackled the two videos. And by the way, I should say this: if you haven't watched this, there will be spoilers in this article. So if you want to watch it and then come back and then that's fine. But I do not want to spoil this for anybody. Sunday's season finale of The Last of Us tackled two of the video game's most famous scenes: the giraffe moment and the final hospital shootout. Joel shot his way through the Salt Lake City hospital as he upholds his commitment to Ellie to save her and chooses her life over the future of humanity. In the final moments of the episode, Joel decides to take Ellie away from the hospital where her immunity to the deadly cordyceps fungus couldn't provide a cure. But in performing the operation, she would have died. Amidst a hail of bullets from the fireflies, Joel makes her choice to take Ellie back to Jackson and massacres everyone in the hospital. Okay, so when it came to tackling the hospital design, production designer John Pano thought he would have to build the sets from scratch and accommodate the hallways in a hail of gunfire that would play out as Joel takes Ellie. It's not an Easter egg per se. Showrunner Craig Mazan and Neil Druckmann wanted to follow the game closely, with Joel going through the places and passages. Our task was to do that, but we ended up finding a desolate hospital outside the city of Calgary. He used, excuse me, he and his team went to the empty hospital, repainted it, and aged it. We wanted to make the same murals in the game when Joel gets to the pediatric wing that were there in the game. That tiny detail stays true to the game, and the team replicated as much as they could. Lighting was also a factor and took into consideration. He looked at where the electricity source would be coming from at the hospital. His idea was to use portable generators that were supplying power. I thought it'd be interesting to have a lot of work lights, the kind you'd find at a construction site, and a string of lights. That setup would give a dark, moody vibe. Cannell also brought in plastic berries and placed them in the hallway. He said it was a nod to when the infected weren't inundating society, when people who had been bitten or sick were being brought in and isolated. We had to incorporate them in a bunch of places, but you can only see it once it was in the final cut. The giraffe scene that preceded the hospital scene was derived from the game, and it was critical to show this beloved moment. Um, Similar to when Ellie was in the mall, um, and seeing what life was like before the outbreak, the scene sees her and Joel have a beautiful bonding moment as she feeds a giraffe shortly after reaching Salt Lake City. The scene itself was a combination of visual effects, scenery, and a location shoot, with real giraffes from the Calgary Zoo being used. Piano explains, I'm sure Alex Wayne, visual effects supervisor, could have made a CGI elephant if we had the time, but time was a factor. The scene with Joel and Ellie walking through a work site with orange chalk. So basically, it goes into. I'm not going to finish the article, guys, because I don't want to bore you. However, it goes into how it was done. And I thought this was so critical because the thing is that every single gamer, including myself, wanted to see a live action game, right? I mean, this is what we hope for when it comes to video game adaptations. And the thing is, how they did it. was remarkable. They actually trained real giraffes. And when you hear that they spent 10 to 15 million dollars on per episode, you go, wow, okay. You see where the money went. That being said, this was I there were 4 or 5 scenes I was really looking forward to. This was one of them. The hospital was one of them, but more importantly, that scene, we had a couple weeks ago where Joel and Ellie were at Jackson, and she doesn't run away, but she basically leaves. And this was a remarkable series. Um, I think it's going to garner multiple Emmy nominations. I also think it's going to garner multiple uh, Emmy wins for Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey. Now, I know this is early in the season. I get that. Okay. However, you can't deny what the viewership was. And I did a whole story on that viewership the other day. Okay. There was a little over 5 million people that tuned in for the premiere of this show. This last episode, 8.2 million. In the week of the Super Bowl, when it aired on a Friday, 10 million people. That's astounding. Um, this Craig Mazan and Neil Druckmann just hit a home run, and they dropped Easter eggs the whole way through too, which I loved. Um, I can't begin to tell you how good this series was. I'm just and actually, if you want to go back on the channel, Kyle actually sat down with I was going to say Neil Druckmann. It wasn't Neil Druckmann. It was editor Timothy Good, and he had about an hour and a half conversation with him talking about his career and The Last of Us and everything else. That's fantastic to check out. Um, but yeah, I hearing the story that they use real giraffes is remarkable, and I can't wait for the second season. And I am going to The Last of Us Part Two is going to be turning 3 at the end of June. I have an idea where I want to do a video about the 30th year anniversary, about The Last of Us Part 2, and where this goes. I mean, we know Bella Ramsey is coming back. We know Pedro Pascal is coming back. We also know, anybody who's played the game, that um, you're going to get a lot of different things. They were going to split the second game up into 2 seasons because it is super, super, super long. Um, so, but yeah, I this show is an amazing show, and I can't wait for this to come back. As a matter of fact, there were rumors out there, and maybe not they're not rumors anymore, that they were going to start filming the second part um, at the end of this year. And if that's the case, that's fantastic. I can't wait. Anyways, guys, what do you think about the story? Like, are you impressed that they used real giraffes? Did you know? Did you watch the show? Are you a fan of the show? If so, did you watch all the episodes the night it dropped, or did you wait the next day? Leave me your thoughts down in the comment section.